and welcome back to another episode of the Blue Honor Vlog. I'm Kay Williams, author of Opdeck Operation Deceit, the Trilogy Trilogy, and Blue Honor, which the blog is named for. Today I wanted to talk about the adaptation of the Trilogy Trilogy and kind of how that works. What I went to school for was adapting novels to film, or filmed novels. So that was also one of my thesis points. I know a lot of people think that a film can't offer much in the way of novelization, but I would argue Star Wars is a extremely good example of how that is untrue. Depending on the material that you have, you can really go a lot of different places. And Trilogy is kind of in that same vein as Star Wars. It is a dark fantasy paranormal multiverse, and it has a lot of area, a lot of ground that you can cover if you choose. And everything is pretty well established within the first 3 books of how that universe works. You know, the rules and stuff that would go with the characters. So you're not going to have people, you know, in the characters that are Duda going around and having affairs with everyone. So that wouldn't be appropriate. Something would be wrong there. You could do that easily with Souls or Denava. Of course, the Denava aspect of that would explore violence and just things like that. And I'm not saying BDSM, because BDSM is a choice between consenting adults, and it is not violence, and we shouldn't confuse the two. What Denava do is really hateful. It's sociopathic, psychopathic behaviors and stuff with them. But anyway, adapting Trilogia. So what happened back in 2006, this was well after I had graduated with my undergrad degree and had been moving on and trying to figure out where I wanted to go, if I wanted to write scripts as well as books, or if I just wanted to stick to books, or if I just wanted to do screenplays. And basically, you know, I took my literary degree and was trying to figure it out, because I had not gone to film school. I was self-taught in screenplay writing, which you can do. I mean, Quentin Tarantino has taught himself filmmaking. You don't necessarily need to go to school if it's not available to you. In growing up in upstate rural New York, there are not a lot of places that you can go. You have to either go to the West Coast or down to the city. And that was kind of frightening for me, being a, 20-year-old female and from the country. It's like, yikes, I don't know that I would adapt well, and I don't know anybody, and I chose not to. I chose to find a job to support myself in, and do my studies on my own, basically looking things up and stuff. I had the internet at my disposal at this point. So what happened is that I had realized that dreams I had been having since I was a child, you wrote them down in a journal similar to this, and I started seeing a pattern. I started seeing a story, and I'm like, I wonder if I'm telling myself a story, that these are not just nightmares, that somehow this film is in me, and I'm trying to figure out how to write it, and I've always been trying to figure out how to write it. So, of course, the recurring dreams were easy enough to remember, and then there were things that definitely stuck out for years. Morgantus, for instance, because he would be a recurring character showing up, and somewhat of an archetype of evil, so to speak, his embodiment and stuff, and he was just flat out fucking scary. I mean, I would wake up sometimes just shivering, and I would be bothered for days by those dreams. It was just, and nothing really horrid went down. It was just, his presence was just so alarming. Like, he did not belong there, and I knew, I could just feel that evil and stuff off of him. And I wanted to transfer that into a writing once I had realized I could see the pattern, I could see a story and stuff in hindsight. So it's like you have this span you know, like from childhood to adulthood. And it's like, okay, so when I was 5, I had X dream, but that doesn't mean that it happened at the beginning of the story. It could be a piece that actually belongs in the middle or the end somewhere. And then dreams that I'm having, you know, in my 20s actually belonged at the beginning and stuff. So things were all over the place. It was like a jigsaw puzzle, somebody just thrown down, and I was having to put the pieces together. So that process took place first, was figuring out what does this all mean, and how can I organize it in a way that it makes more sense, because you also are like trying to unpack the dreams and diffuse them so that I understand what they mean and I understand what I'm trying to tell myself, so that, you know, you're not waking up in a cold sweat anymore like, dude, that was freaky. It's not a good feeling, and it can leave you wrecked for days. It's traumatic. So you kind of want to unpack those and figure out where your brain is going and what it's trying to tell you and what you're trying to unpack. So, you know, writing the screenplay for me was basically about, I did not want to write the book. I was not ready to write the book. I felt like the story had not been fully told. There wasn't enough there to fill it, and that things were going to come along that still needed to be told that I hadn't either dreamt yet or thought of to fill in the story. So I wrote the script, and that alone was just the Shadow Soul. So you will see, like, if you saw the script, you would see the trajectory of the Shadow Soul, which became a 500-page novel. And that's unusual, as I learned in my studies for screenwriting. In most cases, I mean, you do have novelizations from scripts and movies, and these writers do a really great job of taking, you know, an 80 to 120 page screenplay, which is just bare bones, you know, outline, and writing a nice book to accompany this, and it may have further details. I've never actually read one because I tend to stick to literature, etc. So those books are already written and then they're adapted to the film. So I've never taken like something that was first a film and then written into a book. I just haven't had the time. I have to really pick and choose. There's so many books to read, and it sucks that you don't have, like, you know, hundreds of years to just cover everything, but I don't. So a lot of criticism is that you can't take a movie and make a decent book out of it. I made 3, and they're more than decent books. They're, you know, it may sound egotistical, they're fantastic. It is a place where I would love to go. I wish I could open a gate and just go in and be there. Of course, then I would be Holly and Maiel and stuff, because she's based off of me and those experiences. And of course, you know, you have to incorporate a plot line and stuff, so things have to be altered or made extreme, or things have to be toned down, etc. So, like, not everything that happens to Holly has happened to me, just so you know. It is still a dark fantasy, paranormal, but it is based off of these things that I have experienced, and, you know, they're just blossomed out and stuff. But anyway, so the script is 118 pages or 116 pages, and I made 3 novels out of that. Basically, what I saw was the Shadow Soul is an outline. And I don't normally do that. I'm a pantser, you know, plotter or pantser. It's a different style of attacking the writing, and I don't normally plan things out. But I knew back in 2006, I'm like, I just need to write this down so that I don't forget anything, because this is too important, and this is the plot trajectory, everything that I wanted to follow in the novel. So I just wrote it out. Names have changed significantly. The ideas and stuff that I wanted to stress, you know, like Maiel is part muse, so there's different types of Duda that you have. So some of them can shapeshift, some of them cannot. So the shape that they have from their Atman is the shape that they have. That's the one shape that the Atman has mastered, and it's sticking to it. So Maiel has, I guess you would call it a genetic strip in her that allows her to change into another shape, which is a mountain lion and North American lion, and that's it for her and her twin, and her children also have that. So, they could turn into lion cubs for whatever reason that they feel. But for Joel and Maiel, that is emotionally connected. So when they're severely upset, extremely excited, so you can imagine them as kids, roughhousing as little cubs and stuff around the house, and they inherit that from their parents somewhere. And Maiel reacts in one scene, as well as Joel, because Joel, as her twin, is deeply connected, and he can feel what she feels in many cases, especially when it's a strong emotion. And that scene there, I'm really contemplating as I go into readapting the screenplay from the books now. How am I going to handle that? Because I don't know that it plays out as well on film. I've had a table read done of this, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know. It maybe it was the table read format or whatever. I just feel like it gets kind of corny, and I'm not sure that I want to do that. But it was a device to show that as much as she has it together, when something deeply matters and scares her, and there's a deep emotional charge to it, she reverts into this to try and handle it, to get a grip on it, and it becomes a very primal exercise for her, hence the lion. And it's all about her power and aggression and those feelings, and her trying to just negotiate them, etc. And then Joel, of course, is feeling them, and he reflects that, and he also turns. But I don't know how it plays out in a larger thing. It doesn't quite matter so much that she can do this. As I found out, it doesn't matter so much to the Shadow Soul movie and stuff. It wouldn't. So I'm not so sure how I'm going to handle that, if I'm going to leave it in there or not. I may not. It'll be in the book, but I can see her becoming kind of primal-ish. Not quite changing, but, getting like, I will, strangulate you, Joel. Let me go. And I think that might be a little bit better, is that she remains in her form, but there's some kind of, that shows lionish sort of thing, because she is called the Moon Lion for that reason, because she can change into that lion. And she will battle as the lion as well, in certain battles and stuff. She will take on that form, because it is the concentration of her power and her abilities in war. That war phase. That's her war phase. Meow. Anyway, so the adaptation to books from film, I didn't even crack the screenplay. It was crazy, because I think the only thing that I went in there for was maybe names that I had forgotten. I didn't really forget anything, Geitz, etc. And I'm glad that I had written the screenplay, because I feel like that kind of locked it in my brain. But I'm so familiar with that world, and it has so been around me, and it has been so reflected upon and thought about, and it's like daily. Really, daily. It's like I wake up from these dreams still. And, it just provided an outline, and it kept it locked in my head, so that when I finally sat down, when I was doing my master's program in screenplays and film, I said, I think I'm ready. I think I have everything that I need for the 3 books, because it goes up to a certain point, and even though it would be like a future space of me, Spoiler alert, you might want to mute this now if you haven't read The Lucent Rise, which is going to be released in August, so you haven't. Relationship with a certain character for Maiel, and how that evolves, and marriage and having children. So if you haven't read the books, that might be a bit of a spoiler for you if you figure it out. It may be what you think it is, and it may not be what you think it is. It may be a disappointment, and it may not be a disappointment to you. But anyway, so, you know, just thinking about what worked, and a table read is excellent if you can get your friends around to do a table read of your script to figure out, wow, that just really didn't work live. So you can think about what would be better, how can I, you know, finagle this a little bit better, you know, polish it up a bit, maybe change things, and it will work without changing the overall thing that I want. Like I said, instead of having her completely morph, have that animalistic thing acted by the actor without changing their form. It also saves on special effects in the end, so your budget's not like on, which is a turn-off to producers for optioning you, especially when you're brand new. So you want to consider that. I've also been thinking about what would the format be. Would it be a series of films, or would it be television? And thanks to Martin in Game of Thrones, you're kind of like, I'm not so worried about that anymore, because it's like you want that treatment that you see in film, and that vastness. And Game of Thrones did that. So, and you see that in Netflix series, Umbrella Academy, etc. There's that vastness and just that look and feel, and it's like little 1-hour movies and stuff in a series, and then you can do so much more of the books in there too, because there's so much to share and there's so much cool stuff. It would be extremely unfair to take those and try to tell it in, you know, a couple hours. So much would have to be taken out, and it would be a disservice to the books. So I've thought about that, and I've approached my brother, who also does film, and I've suggested, let's do a pilot. So he has that right now, and hopefully we'll get that done, and I'll have a pilot script. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to update the film script, because I can also use that as well to put out in screenplay contests and film festivals, etc. So we would have both of these aspects. So we can say, like, I have a film script if you want to do it in like a film form, and then do a series following that. Like, okay, we're going to do this as a film, and then we'll have a series or whatever after. But I really, really think that it would be best at this point in my thinking as a series, several seasons. Give a couple seasons to each book, several episodes, you know, at least 10 each season, and flesh it out in that manner. But this also takes it so that I don't have to be the sole writer, because I would like to continue the series. As you know, the Agarth Chronicles and stuff are what I'm thinking about now, and then that extends, you know, a peripheral storyline, and then I have all these other planets where, you know, eventually I might think of stories to take place on those, or I can come back to and tell more of her story or her children's story, or go back and tell about the fall where Gadiel's grandfather, you know, burns down in the conflict and stuff. Ryle's brother and that story. There's just like an allotted opportunity there. You know, there's so many peripherals that could be done off of Trilogy. It's vast. It is a property that I think if someone would give me time, they would see how much they could honestly make off of this. And it would be a lot of fun. Like, I want Funko Pops of my characters. I'd live for that. That would be amazing. I would really geek out, because I wrote this because it is a story that I wanted to hear, that I wanted to read, and that I wanted to see as a series. And, you know, as much as there's all this great content and stuff out there, I felt like something like this has never been done. No one has gone and told a story that actually deals with angels like they're superheroes, or that they're real. You know, they're always these ethereal side characters that come in, and they're either cruel or they're gifting people things, but they never really get into what it's like to be one of them. They don't get into the other side. You know, there's very few films that even contemplate that. One movie that I did like, and I kind of wish that it was done slightly differently, was Legion. And I thought, oh my God, this is so cool. This is kind of similar to what I've done. And it wasn't. It was just, again, you know, angels hate humans, and here they are to, like, eat them, you know? And it was like, they're not going to do that if you understand how they function. The other guys will do that, and they'll convince you that the angels are here to eat your face. They're not. But it's just, it's so amazing to take different mythologies and crunch them down and see how they fit together, kind of like reconstructing the Tower of Babel. So we have all these communication means, and they've been broken apart like a jigsaw puzzle, and I'm just putting them back together to kind of tell a story. And it's something that I've always wanted to see. You know, like, my favorite character, I would say, in all literature, is probably Saint Michael. I'm fascinated by him. And there's not that much written about him, actually, in the Bibles. The Bible, Talmud, you know, the Quran, etc. It's like this, again, the side character. And I'm like, I want to talk about him. I want to hear more about them and stuff. We're so obsessed, I guess. People like the paranormal. So obsessed with these figures. But, you know, in a lot of treatments, he gets, you know, people suspect that he's very judgy and mean and thinks of us as lesser than. And, you know, I do touch on the racism a bit, and how we're viewed as not quite as evolved, and how that might be perceived by us versus how they think that they're approaching it. You know, there's no malice, but it's still harmful, and it's othering, and it's limiting, and it's hurtful. And that was good to talk about, because as we're dealing with race issues across the world, it's something that we need to talk about. How we think that, oh, you know, our biases, it's no big deal, when it is. It's affecting other people, and it's making things difficult for them, when we don't need to really hold this bias, etc. And we have to understand where it's coming from with us, and to stop projecting it, etc. on other people. You know, so Aunt Maiel and stuff in the series, but another name change there. Alex did keep her name in the end. Did love that name, Alexandria. So that's Trilogy and stuff. In the process with that is like all these dreams, connecting the dreams in a journal, realizing that there's a story, doing a script, figuring out that script was a good outline, waiting years until I felt ready to pen that story, ending up with 3 books, and now returning to do, you know, a pilot and series or a film script. And it's like, I will not be doing a film script of Burning Down or Lucent Rise unless the option becomes, yeah, let's do this as films instead. Which I don't think that that's proper for it. I believe it is a TV multi-series, sort of epic Game of Thrones sort of style. HBO. Anyway, So I really don't want to get into that, but it would be fairly easy because the books already exist to just take them from there and to adapt, you know, chapter to chapter. That's what I do, so I find that very simple. That's something that I learned how to do and I love doing, and I find fairly simple. You know, it could be frustrating because the director or producer or whatever is like, there's not enough in here, and this needs to do that and that. And television is different for me too. I learned how to do film, and television is a little bit different. Similar, different. So there's a little learning curve there that I'm going to have to go through should something be adapted. So it's good to have, you know, a teammate, my brother and stuff, so, you know, we can kind of bounce these ideas and say, I don't think this is working from the book to the screen, and we have to think of something else that will work and still reflect your ideas from the book. And that'll be fun. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So hopefully moving forward and stuff with Stage 32 and getting help on there and learning things, that'll be great. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Seriously, subscribe, because I do a lot of these and I talk about my process and stuff. So if you're a new writer or even an existing writer who's just looking for, you know, other perspectives, this is the place to come for these. And then of course you'll get the Shag Bottom Theaters and scratch your head and wonder why is she so weird? But it's fun, and it's film parodies, and it's a talking dog, sometimes talking cats. And yeah, check that out because it's weird. Weird is fun. All right. Thank you. Subscribe. Serious. Thank you. Come back next time.